Hey everybody, welcome back to Horror Trans. My name is Stephanie Bree. I am a transgender woman, and I talk about all things horror. And for today's horror icons, we're taking a break from, actual humans, people, filmmakers, actors, etc. And we're getting back into the roots of this film, of this franchise, this video series, essay series, or whatever you want to call it. And we're talking about a fictional character from the Nightmare on Elm Street film franchise, Amanda Krueger. There's going to be spoilers in this video if you haven't seen the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So you should probably watch those movies before you watch this video. Which, at this point in time, you should have already seen those movies like 30 times each. So, what are you doing with your life? I don't know. Go watch A Nightmare on Elm Street is what I'm saying. But let's talk about Amanda Krueger. So, Amanda Krueger makes her first appearance, spoilers, as Sister Mary Helena, basically as a ghost in Nightmare on Elm Street. Goddamn, I always mix those two up. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. Some would argue is the best in the franchise, but I think those people have weird expectations of what's good and what isn't good. Good movie, don't get me wrong, but best in the franchise? Come on, have you seen Dream Master? Have you seen the original? Have you seen Freddy vs. Jason? Is it good? Yes, abso-fucking-lutely. Is it the best? I don't know. But, moving on. So, she basically appears as an apparition who serves as our harbinger, who is feeding information to our adult characters that are looking after the teenagers. Most notably, Dr. Gordon, who is the pseudo-love interest of Nancy Thompson in this movie when she makes her return, but also the psychiatrist responsible for trying to keep these allegedly suicidal teenagers alive. And I say allegedly because they're not really suicidal. But Freddy does a good job framing them to look like suicides because, he wants to keep the adults off the trail, off the scent. He's like, hey, don't come looking for me. It's just, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Come on, what are you going to do? So anyways, we get her backstory in this movie. And what we find out is she was a young woman of an indeterminate age. I would say probably late teens, early 20s, somewhere in that ballpark. So very not good. Basically, she's a nun or a... Well, I don't know if she's a nun at this time. They just say she was a young woman on the staff at a mental... basically an insane asylum. Back in, I want to say, the 30s or 40s. I don't remember the specific timeline. It's not important. Long story short, she gets locked into the asylum, basically in the cage where they keep the crazy people, or the mentally unstable people that need medical attention. But they're not getting medical attention, they're getting treated like criminals and tortured because that was the 40s. But anyway, she gets locked in there with the criminals. Well, the criminally insane is the term they use in the movie. Young girl in her late teens, early 20s. Long story short, she gets raped hundreds of times by a bunch of psychopaths. When they find her, she's pregnant, but because she's Catholic, they don't let her get an abortion. But this is also before Roe v. Wade, but also before the reversal of Roe v. Wade, so that's neither here nor there. Basically, getting an abortion is not an option for her. She's got to carry the baby to term and give birth to Demon Freddy. Freddy Krueger. This is the origin story of Freddy Krueger. They refer to him as the bastard son of 100 maniacs, which is not how pregnancy works, but it makes a good urban legend. So in this film, Amanda Krueger appears as her later nun self, Sister Mary Helena, because, presumably she's Catholic, she grew up, became a nun, whatever. And she's basically spoon-feeding the adults the lore they need to figure out how to defeat Freddy. Spoilers, she's wrong, because what they do doesn't work, and Freddy comes back in the next movie anyways. And again and again and again and again. He just keeps coming back. So she was like, my bad. Oops. We don't hear about Amanda Krueger at all in the sequel to the Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Jesus Christ. Once we get to Dream Master, which is part 4 in the franchise, they don't bring her up again. They just go back to repeating the original urban legend, you know. Child murderer, got let off on a technicality, comes back, burned to death by the neighborhood adults, comes back in your dreams and kills you. So we get that legend repeated again. That the backstory we knew about, introduced in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1. My God. This cold is fucking with my brain. Probably the cold medicine is fucking with my brain. Anyways. But she does come back in Part 5, The Dream Child. Now, The Dream Child takes place in the 80s, and abortion at this time in American legal history was legal in the United States, because this was before they reversed Roe v. Wade. This was after Roe v. Wade. So anyways, the girl gets pregnant, the father of the baby dies, and Freddy is using the baby's dreams to kill her friends. But he uses his mother, Amanda Krueger, to dream himself back to life. And the way he does it is when Alice gets pregnant in real life, Freddy uses that to get his ghost mama re-pregnant again, so that she can relive her traumatic pregnancy, childbirth, give birth to Demon Freddy in the dream again, so he can come back to life and kill some more. So we get to see more Amanda Krueger in this movie. The Amanda Krueger we see in this movie is younger Amanda Krueger. This is not Sister Mary Helena. This is Amanda Krueger, young woman, probably by the looks of the actress who plays her, and based on the events we see in the film, this is probably the girl that had just got raped over the weekend. Now she's pregnant, gave birth to Freddy 9 months later. So she's still a young woman at this point. So this is young. This is, the timeline in these movies is a little fishy, but we'll deal with that later. For now, all you need to know is in order to defeat Freddy in this movie, they have to go back to the insane asylum, because we get more backstory. So the backstory is after his trial, allegedly, she commits suicide because she's so distraught that her son was a murderer and he's going to get away with it. So because of that, she allegedly kills herself. And so they have to locate her body or astral projection or spirit or spiritual essence. Basically, they got to find where she died and release her, we'll say energy, for lack of a better term, so that her energy can manifest as her physical self in the dream, and she coaches the dream child, to basically turn Freddy back into a baby, and then she picks up baby Freddy and absorbs her back into her body so she can carry him, I guess, to either heaven or hell, depending on where she's going, I guess. And that's the last we hear of Amanda Krueger. That's it. Those are the only 2 films in the entire, 8-9 film franchise where she's mentioned at all. That's it. She's never brought up again. She's not even mentioned at all. His origin is never brought up in the remake. We know nothing about. We don't even know if she is who she was in the remake or not. So that's unfortunate. We don't get any connections to that. So by that point, we're just back to the, child murder off on a technicality, burned to death by the parents, blah blah blah. The same backstory we've already heard a dozen times. Amanda Krueger is more or less an apparition in both movies that she makes an appearance. Obviously, because she's dead. Now, why her soul is trapped in its earthly prison in Nightmare on Elm Street 5, which takes place roughly 2 to 3 years after A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. But in the events of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, her ghost is free to wander the earth as she pleases, is never explained. So, we do know, because she was a nun, we do know she does not raise Freddy Krueger. He is basically, we'll say, a foster child, which we learn in Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. We get to see some of his childhood. So, she was only his mother in that she's the woman that gave birth to him. She did not raise him. He did not know her. Presumably did not even know of her. But considering that the kids in his class, his elementary class, referred to him as the son of several hundred maniacs, we know that the legend of his origin story is at least known. So, even if he never met his mother and knows nothing about her, he at least knows allegedly how he was conceived. So he would at least know tangentially of her. You know, kind of, sort of loosely. Or at least the legend of her, if not the true story. So, Amanda Krueger is only shown in 2 films, and her appearances are incongruent with one another. She shouldn't have been in the Dream Warriors, based on what they retcon her backstory to be in the Dream Child. But since the Dream Child came out later and she was in the Dream Warriors, they shouldn't have retconned her ending? Question mark. Because that just leaves a big old plot hole. How was she able to get out into the cemetery to talk to Dr. Gordon in the Dream Warriors if she was trapped in her earthly prison? I don't fucking know. To this day, we've never seen her again. She's never mentioned again. She's never brought up again. And they never bring up the, you know, origin of his birth again. It's hinted at loosely in Freddy's Dead, and then it's dropped entirely. So I don't know. What do I think of Amanda Krueger as a horror icon, as a horror character? Well, she definitely adds to the lore of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, if only her doing so just makes them more fucking convoluted than they already were. So, I am not a fan of this origin story of Amanda Krueger as a character, or as the, you know, what happened, the tragedy of what happened to her, leading to him, leading to, you know, because then it goes back to the kind of, if you're going by a Catholic cataclysm, it is sins of the parents, allegedly. You know, his father was a murderer, so he inherited his father's sins, even though his father raped his mother, whatever. And then he was destined to become a killer. I don't like that. I don't like that angle at all. That's too Catholic for me, and I'm a pagan, so I'm just like, alright, I understand these movies have to have some supernatural explanation for what's going on, but oh, Jesus, I don't like it. Whatever. So, Amanda Krueger, that's her story, and those are the 2 movies that you're going to learn about her. Stay cool.